I've always been drawn to silence. The kind that wraps around you and makes you feel like the only. That's why I rented Lanier for a solo writing retreat. Everyone warned me about that lake. They said it swallows people, whispers to them, drags them under. But I didn't care. I needed peace. It was just me, my notebook, and the still waters. The first night I slept like a baby. The second night I heard whispers. They came from the lake, software rhythmic, like chanting but broken, as if the words were trying to form but never could. Outside at midnight, thinking maybe it was wind or frogs, but the lake was flat. No wind, no sound but the whispers. I tried to ignore it, but the next morning I found wet footprints leading from the dock to my cabin door. Bare feet, small, human. I checked the security cam I had installed. It glitched around 2:14 a.m., the exact time. I should have left, but I stayed, stubborn. That night, the whispers turned into cries. I opened my eyes around 2 a.m. to see a woman standing at the foot of my bed, soaking wet, her long hair clinging to her face. Her eyes were milky white and her mouth moved, but no sound came out. I couldn't move. Then she vanished. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my keys, and bolted out the door. But when I got to my car, the lake was in the way. I swear to you, the shoreline had shifted. The water stretched up the land like fingers. My car was submerged, drowned. Panicking, I ran back to the cabin. But the woman was inside now, standing in the corner, staring. Then others appeared, wet, silent, watching me. All victims of some missing eyes, others with bloated skin. They were all dead but walking. They whispered in unison, "We never left. We never left. And now, you won't either." The door slammed. The windows shattered inward. Water started seeping through the wooden floorboards, filling the cabin from below. I screamed, climbing on the table. My phone wouldn't turn on. My chest felt heavy, like the air had been replaced with lake water. That's when I realized I wasn't just being haunted. The lake wanted me to join them, to drown. And then everything stopped. Light, warm, radiant and golden, exploded through the cracks in the cabin walls. The ghosts shrieked, covering their faces, and began dissolving into mist. And then he appeared, not walking but floating. An angel, massive wings, eyes like the morning sun, robes glowing brighter than fire. He raised one hand and said, "Enough." The lake retreated. The dead vanished. My chest loosened. I could breathe again. The cabin dried in seconds. I collapsed to the floor, crying. He looked at me, not with judgment, but mercy, and said, "You weren't meant to die here, but you were meant to see." And just like that, he was gone. I left Lake Lanier that morning. Never looked back. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear the whisper. Not the ghost this time, but the angel's voice. "You were meant to see." I never believed in ghosts. Not really. I used to laugh at people who talk about haunted places, buildings, and curses. That all changed the night I spent in a sanatorium. It started with a dare, I know. My friends and I were doing a challenge, visiting the top 10 most haunted places in America. Waverly was number 2 on the list. They chickened out the night before, but I didn't want to back out. I told them I'd go alone and film it live. I arrived just before midnight. The building stood like a decaying monster on the hill, surrounded by trees that whispered secrets in the wind. My phone had full battery, flashlight on, camera rolling. I stepped through the rusted doors, and the air changed. Thicker, colder. The halls were long and dark, filled with peeling paint and echoes that didn't belong to me. I passed a room with rusty bed frames and names scratched into the walls. I whispered into the camera, trying to be funny, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. As I walked deeper into the building, I found myself standing in front of room 502, the infamous suicide room. 2 nurses had supposedly died there. One hung herself from the light fixture, the other jumped from the window. The door creaked open slowly, even though I hadn't touched it. Inside, it felt wrong. There was something oppressive in the air, like I was being watched. I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. That's when I heard the whisper. "Leave." I spun around. No one. Then something darted past me. A shadow figure, cold and fast. I screamed and ran down the hall, but the more I ran, the longer the hallway stretched. Doors on either side slammed shut by themselves. My flashlight flickered. When it came back on, I wasn't alone. A little girl stood in the hallway, pale, wet eyes. She reached for me and said, "Don't go to the tunnel." I didn't even know there was a tunnel. Then the walls bled. Not metaphorically. Blood dripped from the ceiling and the walls began to pulse like a beating heart. My phone died, though I had 78% battery a minute before. I was trapped in darkness. I stumbled and fell into an open shaft. I think it was an elevator hole. I landed hard on something soft. Mattresses, maybe. But when I sat up, I realized I was in the body chute. They called it the death tunnel, used to discreetly remove corpses during the tuberculosis outbreak. It was long and steep, lined with decay and iron. As I began crawling through it, I felt hands on my ankles. Not one, many, grabbing, clawing. I screamed until my voice cracked. Something began laughing, a deep, echoing, guttural laugh that didn't sound human. Then it stopped. All at once. Silence. Cold air. And then a blinding light flooded the tunnel. I thought I'd died, that I was being pulled into the afterlife. But a figure stood before me, not terrifying, but radiant. Eyes like fire, wings folded back, tall and otherworldly. The light made the crawling hands vanish, the laughter fade. He reached out to me and said only one thing. "Not tonight." He touched my forehead. I woke up outside the building, on the lawn under the stars, my camera placed neatly beside me. My clothes were clean, no blood, no dirt. I looked at the footage. It was all there, except the angel. My friends didn't believe me, said I passed out and hallucinated. But I know what happened. I still have the scratches on my ankle where the hands grabbed me. And sometimes in dreams, I hear that same voice again, whispering, "Not tonight."